started. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special I Love Horror little mini interview today. Today, I am sitting with the writer director of the In Search of Darkness documentary series, David Weiner. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to talk to another movie nerd who loves horror as much as I do. I mean, you've kind of written the book, so to speak, with your films.
Yeah, I think I very much wear it on my sleeve. And if I didn't do it on the first documentary, I might have done it on the second documentary. If I didn't do it on the second documentary, I might have done it on the third, and so on and so on. And now I'm doing my sixth documentary for Creator VC, all long form documentaries, five of them in Search of Darkness, three of 80s. I'm doing the second 90s, and I did one for sci-fi in Search of Tomorrow for the 80s as well. So I can explain what it's all about and stuff like that. But I am very appreciative of the fact that I get to nerd out in documentary form to fellow nerds who appreciate this kind of stuff, and a heavy dollop of nostalgia to go along with it.
Absolutely. And clearly, I love horror. I mean, that's why I have a podcast with that name. But tell me, you were kind of explaining a little bit about the In Search of Darkness and the decades and stuff. Tell me a little bit more about this series of documentaries and kind of a little bit more about the format and kind of what you're hoping to accomplish with this new one.
Yeah, sure. So it all started back in 2018. I got together with executive producer Robin Block, who has a company called Creator VC. And he had this bold idea to have, let's do a movie about, I love horror movies, he said, and I'd love to do a documentary that only focuses on 80s horror because 80s horror is so amazing and there's so much there. Why don't we do movie after movie after movie, year by year, as a format like that? And I said, that's an amazing idea. Let's structure it a little more where in between each year, we have larger context chapters in between about special effects or the composers or, the zeitgeist of the era, the heroes, the villains. And the idea was we literally go year by year. So 1980 to 1989, within each year, I curate anywhere between 10, 12, 15 individual movies, and we focus on those. And then you got those larger context chapters in between. The idea is we get all the people who were working on these films, as many as we can get. So whether they were in front of the camera or behind the camera, whether it's John Carpenter movie, so it's John Carpenter talking about his movies, or it's Heather Langenkamp talking about being in Nightmare on Elm Street. I get to sit down with these folks. They choose to sit down with me. We talk for a nice long time, not only about their own projects, but they get to talk about the stuff that they love just as movie fans. And so this is a formula that's really sort of caught on because we get to reflect on something that was 30 to 40 years ago, a whole decade, look at it as a whole. But also, we get to sort of look at things with a contemporary lens and how things have aged and evolved as well. And it's just super fun to be able to do. And then after doing the first one, fans loved it. The horror community responded really, really strongly to it. They gave us permission to do more, and we did more. These things are long form documentaries. The first one was almost 4.5 hours
Oh, wow.
with credits. The second one was about 4:45. By the time we got to In Search of Darkness Part 3, we went to the 80s again because people said more, and there's more to cover. That was now cracking past 5 hours and change. And now I am doing In Search of Darkness 1990s, but I'm doing it in two parts. So I just did last year In Search of Darkness 1990 to 94, 6 hours long. And these are
Nice.
as long as they are because people say, inject this in my veins, keep going. We want more bang for our buck. And they're very easy to digest because you don't have to sit there for 6 straight hours unless you want to wear an adult diaper and that's your thing. You basically,
Yeah. No kink shame.
you could watch a year, and then watch the next year, the next day. You could watch a quarter, you could watch a half. It moves at a real swift pace. And there's always more to learn, appreciate, be entertained by, and see a time capsule of your favorite horror heroes and legends, in talking about the stuff that they were part of. And anyway, so we're doing In Search of Darkness 95 to 99 currently in production with that. And we're doing a pre-order sale for that lasts between now and June 9th at midnight. If you go to 90shorrordoc.com, so 90s horrordoc.com, it'll tell you all the things you can get, like your name in the credits. You get your name in the credits, like
Oh, yeah, nice.
next to Doug Bradley, Pinhead, you name it. If they're in it, you get to have your credits in the same movie, and then you get to have a physical copy that you put on your shelf, and for years on and years and years and years, you could brag that you helped get this movie over the line because we're an independent production. And if you don't have any room because you're overflowing or you're moving or who knows what, you can get the digital copy as well. But what's cool is if you do the pre-order now, you can be in this movie with your name or more. So very cool.
Nice. So you're essentially telling me you as a horror fan get to live the dream, but also provide the horror fan dream experience to people, which I love. I think that's great. And 95 through 99, what a freaking great era for horror. I mean, it's hard to say what's the best era of horror, but do you have a favorite decade of horror that you really gravitate towards?
I look at decades like my children. It's like
Okay.
I cannot pick favorites because it would not be true to myself by saying one decade and one decade only is the best, because my appreciation of horror really goes back to when I used to call it monster movies as a kid, and that's
Okay.
Universal horror. Going from the 30s through the 50s. You've got Hammer horror. There's of course 70s horror, where I'm a 70s kid and an 80s teen, and of course now older and graying in the temples. But the thing is, when I was first really getting into all this stuff, I lived and breathed this stuff, and uh, I called it monster movies until I saw that movie Halloween, and I also saw The Omen, I saw The Exorcist, I saw the Amityville Horror, and I realized that wait, it's not just monster movies. There's like pure horror going on. That's when I clued into it, and so it's sort of two divergent paths of Godzilla, American Werewolf, the Creature from the Black Lagoon might be in one category, and then there's the supernatural, hardcore and crazier stuff and more wild stuff, whether it was 80s amazing filmmaking or 90s, which I think a lot of people, if they see, especially the first half in 1990 to 1994 that I did, they'll rediscover that there's so much more to offer than just Scream and Blair Witch, the second half of the decade, which are amazing, but they kind of steal the spotlight of the entire decade, kind of interestingly, and people memory hole it.
Yeah, because you're kind of like, oh shit, that's right. Leprechaun did go to Vegas in the 90s. I should probably rewatch that. Why not? Or it's
Right?
like, oh yeah, Leatherface did have kind of a cross-dressing phase with Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey.
That's
So it's like,
right.
yeah, so why not why not revisit those?
Exactly. And that's also, you bring up a great point, because the 90s were also very much about the 80s horror icons were like, no, no, just because the decade line ended and it's now the 90s, we're still going to be here and hanging around because you love us. So we're either going to be in sequels or we're going to be in reinventions of ourselves, like, Freddy Krueger, where he dies in 91 and Freddy's dead. No spoiler there because that's the title of the movie. But then he's back, just a couple of years later in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So there's lots of reinvention. There's a lot of meta filmmaking, which is catering to a much more sophisticated audience who enjoys and understands tropes and likes to make fun of that. There's so much going on in the 90s, and I'm having a real blast talking to the people who were there and crafting part two of this decade of retrospect to talk all about some of the best movies ever made in horror.
Absolutely. And do you think like speaking of earlier 90s from 90 to 94, now you're doing 95 to 99. Do you feel the late 90s stack up pretty well with horror? Or do you feel it started to tear up a little bit less, a little bit more? It's kind of a weird question to ask, but I'm always curious with people of our age, like how they feel with those decades.
I'm remembering that like I said, like Scream Kevin Williamson driven, teen driven, slashers, and, movies like The Faculty, even Halloween H2O, all really felt very much the influence of Scream. The Craft, which came the same year, but a little before, there was a certain teen trend that was happening, and serious meta trend, like capitalized, sort of not capitalized, best sort of taken advantage of by movies like Bride of Chucky, which makes like pinhead jokes in it if you're paying close attention to it.
Yeah, like why does that guy look
Why does
so
that guy look
familiar?
so familiar? He's got nails,
Yeah,
a nail in the head kill from a nail gun. To answer your question, I think that I had so much fun. I saw so many of the movies, but like I don't claim to be the be all and end all, know it all of all this stuff. There's always
I
movies that
do.
I'm discovering. There's always like, oh gosh, there was that one title at the video store. I know it exists. I never saw it because I thumbed my nose at it a little bit, but now I have greater appreciation for it. Jack Frost, I'm talking about you. So
That's exactly what I was thinking of. I was imagining that holographic cover in the days of Blockbuster when I worked there
yeah,
and just walking by it and just, I'm not going to watch that movie. And I watch it and I was like, okay, well, clearly I can't judge a book by its cover.
that's one of those movies where unless you're just in that goofy mood or that's where it was or someone had it, you needed a friend to sort of point that out to you and say, no, this is good. Just trust me on this one. Those are the best movies ultimately when you kind of have your doubts and then you sit down and it's way more entertaining than you ever expected it to be. I mean, I felt that way when I sat down to watch Evil Dead 2 with
Yeah.
my pals who said, and I'm like, I never saw Evil Dead 1. They're like, it doesn't matter. We're going to watch this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my new favorite movie. Oh, wait, what's that movie? Brain Dead / Dead Alive. You're saying that that's good too? That looks terrible and gross. Oh my God, that's my new favorite movie. So anyway, I'm actually in looking at the decade as entirely as a whole. There's so much diversity in the storytelling, in the quality of the filmmaking, whether it's studio level budget or straight shot on video or straight to video. It doesn't matter. I think what's important for you to understand and for your audience to understand is with these documentaries, everything's on an even playing field. I do not judge. I present them. These came out this year. This is part of the big jigsaw puzzle. This is the triumphs of the movie. This is the challenges of the movie. This is kind of what it's about, in case you're not aware of what it is. Ideally, I get someone from the movie to talk about it. If not, I get an expert who loves these movies and can sort of dissect it. And it's just an absolute celebration of a decade. And so, yeah, there's so much going on in the 90s. Sorry, it's very hard for me to A, pin down with a single answer, and B, when you
No, I
say
get it.
this or this, I'm like, well, let's talk about the middle.
No, I'm the same way. You asked me one question, so I'm going to give you about 25 different answers. So it's fine. But no, I agree with you. It is hard to pin those down. And a lot of movies I recommend to people, so I'll have guests on, and after I give them a list of maybe like 20 movies that we may have talked about or may they've never seen. A lot of them are from the early to late 90s, like
Mhm.
Frighteners. A lot of people don't know about Frighteners, and that's a
Yeah.
fantastic movie. And it's nice that you're doing what you're doing. You're giving kind of a, maybe a second, maybe a third life to some of these horror movies that people either don't know exist or need to know that they exist. And I think that's amazing that you're doing that. And as a big 90s, 80s, 2000s fan, even I'm really excited to see what you have in store for it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's I really try and do a broad spectrum of well-known things to little more obscure and eclectic titles and everything in between. But I think ultimately, here's the thing, with horror, as the years go by, there's more and more and more and more and more and more and more to consume. And so it's nice when I have an opportunity with a long form documentary like this to be able to essentially curate with each year. And as a completist, it's always frustrating for me because I'm like, ugh, mathematically, I can only fit so many per year. And then you've got the chapters in between, and then I'm already flying past 5 hours, and then I'm getting to 6 hours, and I gotta put a cap on it. because we do it as one long documentary and it's not a series. But even if we did as an episodic series, you're always going to have stuff left on the table. One of the caveats I have is that with each year, when we're choosing an actual movie that we're going to talk about, I have this wall of posters, and we kind of move across the wall of posters, and we zero in on one film, and then we see a little bit of the trailer, and then we talk about it. And what I do is, because I know that we cannot get to all those movies, it's sort of telling the audience, well, look, even though we're not going to talk about the one that you wish that we end up on, here are a bunch of others that you could seek out. And also in discussion about these movies, or in these larger context chapters, the topic chapters, we're constantly referencing this movie, that movie. It could be in a different decade. It doesn't matter. Different country, different decade. We'll mention it. It pops up. You can see a bit of a clip for it, and in context of what we're talking about. Go to those end credits and just say, all right, I now have a new list for my Letterboxd.
Yeah, and I like it. It's almost like a Pepe Sylvia board of horror in a way. You're just kind of stringing everything you can along. And Pepe Sylvia, he loved Leatherface, and I mean, I watch It's Always Sunny way too much. I mean, but it's no, I love it, and I love that you do that. And I think people should not only be excited for this, but if there's somebody like me who are new to these, can go back and enjoy all the work that you've done in preparation for this new one. I mean, the previous ones are. Where can people access those?
Well, everything you could go, if you, our socials are all 80s horror doc. So if you go to Twitter X, if you go to Instagram, if you go to Facebook, go to at 80s, 80s, 80s horror doc, DOC. If you go, you know how you can find link trees, on Instagram and stuff like that. Click the link tree. You can get instant access now to get digital copy or stream these movies. And what we're doing right now is, when I say go to 90shorrordoc.com only until June 9th, is we run these short-lived sales for physical media. Because we make these movies, we manufacture them, and we distribute them ourselves, direct to the consumer, direct to the audience. But the idea is, we are a very small team that does this all by ourselves. So we can't just have it, we have no warehouse with stacks and stacks that we distribute to stores or anything like that. This is all our blood, sweat, and tears. We do it in batches, but we always have it where you can get it now, by going to, our link tree is the best way to sort of access those. You can go to Amazon too and find some of them, but I find the best way and the best way to support us is to go directly to our site.
Straight to the source of the horror guerrilla filmmaking experience. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
if you want to support indie filmmaking, and these documentaries are crowd funded. They're not Kickstarter. It's basically a pre-order, but what we do is, because we make and manufacture this ourselves, we have a community that will, essentially give us permission to make these films by voting with their dollar. And these movies will get made regardless or not. But the idea is, having this as an opportunity where you could be involved. You could have, if you get in early enough, it's not currently this way right now, but if you follow us, you'll find that whenever we're doing a movie, you can talk to the filmmakers, like me, directly. You could talk to sometimes some of the talent. And you can also, we have surveys where you could say, I'd love to see this, I'd love to see that, and fill all this stuff out so you could be a key part of the process, because we absolutely value the community, and we absolutely value kind of the hive mind of everyone saying, wouldn't it be cool if you do this? Of course, we'd love you to do this, but have you thought of that? And listen, I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe more than two people mentioned, have I thought of that? Because guess what? I haven't thought of it. And now I'm I'm going to take a look at it and see if it's something that we could do. So it's not editing by committee, but it's definitely a communal experience that I think gives agency to a lot of the horror fans to feel like that they're part of this process as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons, that and just many things why the horror community is probably the best community to be a part of. Unfortunately, Star Wars fans have ruined Star Wars for everybody, but horror fans were strong, and we stick together, and I love that. And I'll tell you, with this one that you have coming out, the mid to late 90s, I'm excited to see how you guys tackle one of my favorite horror subgenres, found footage. That's
Hmm.
usually when that boom happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are a couple things that it sort of began in the late part of it. Uh, when Blair Witch came out in '99, that wasn't a term that anybody used, found footage at all. But it quickly, from that phenomenon that happened, all of a sudden, found footage was a household term, especially for film fans, and it really kicked off. But there's a history. It's not the first found footage film. So there is a history to draw on from that, and you could look at J horror as well. J horror was, Japanese horror was just doing its thing, but because if you think about it, Scream and all the similar films that were inspired in that vein, and all the studios saying, "I want to do something like Scream." I think horror fans, the pendulum swung a little bit, where they're looking for something a little darker, a little harder, a little more esoteric. And with the help of the internet, especially, people could get access to movies like Ring, movies like Audition. They've started to seep in their way into the mom and pop video stores. Now, of course, the boom happened pretty much after 2000, especially when Hollywood took notice and said, "We're remaking every damn movie we can that's Japanese horror, because it's so great and it's so different, and there's gold in them, there are hills." But it's interesting to see some of the trends that were kicked off in the latter half of the '90s.
Absolutely, and I'm excited. So, my listeners, you all know that if you're a true fan of horror, every night can be a Fright Night, but make every night a Fright Night by watching these and pre-ordering into In Search of Darkness on the website. And the 95 through 99 is going to be a really great and epic era. And David, thank you so much again for coming on and doing this quick interview with us. And is there an Instagram that people can follow you and the In Search of Darkness series at?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw that website again. Last time is 90shorrordoc.com. Sorry, I feel like I'm a pitchman during a telethon
You
doing
gotta
these
be,
things,
man.
but
It's the best way to do it.
that's the way to do it, though, to find it. 90s, 90shorrordoc.com. Our socials on Instagram are, it's all 80s horror doc, because we couldn't like switch it to 90s. We'd have to build our audience from the bottom up again. And we have a nice sizable audience. So 80s horror doc on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, X, and I have my own Instagram called, I have my own site just for fun, pop culture site called itcamefromblog.com. And so you can find It Came From Blog on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. And I'm on Blue Sky just as me, David Weiner. And there are too many socials, but I'm out there. I'm always active. We're incredibly active in terms of promoting 90s horror and just horror in general on 80s Horror Doc. So please check it out. And, thanks so much, Chris, for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time. And yeah, we'll have you on again soon in September. I can't wait to go a little bit more in depth with you.
It would be my pleasure to come back.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.